Okay, so I am so happy to be here at World Congress for Families 9. My name is Nicholeen Peck, if you didn't catch that on the program. And I am most known for being the self-government lady. So I don't know if you understand what that term means. We're going to get into it just a little bit today, and we're going to hopefully help you feel like you understand what self-government is and why it would be important. I want to just share briefly my history. So when my oldest child was, well, first off, let's do a survey. How many of you in the room have children? Grandchildren? Keep your hands up. So children, let's add grandchildren. How many of you possibly could have children one day? Yeah? Okay. How many of you know children? Hopefully that covers everybody. All right. Because my focus today is on children and on the family and what the family can do to create a strong environment for children. Because after all, that is the product of every family, is the children that come out of it. So years ago, when my oldest child was 3 years old, my husband and I decided to do treatment foster care for a place here in Utah called the Utah Youth Village. And our home became a treatment home for youth ages 12 to 18. And for a number of years, we did this foster care. Shortly after we started bringing troubled youth into our home, people started asking me, hey, what are you doing? These kids are changing so drastically. They seem like they came with a big burden, and now they're so light, and they're so happy, and it's so much better. Can you please come to our school, come to our church, come to our parent group, and come talk to us about what you're doing, because we want to be better parents too, and you obviously know something. At this time, I was such a young mom. I felt like, why would anybody ever listen to me? I don't even have gray hairs yet. And I don't think I'm going to die because I've earned these, and it looks like I know what I'm doing finally. Anyway, so my oldest child is now 19 years old. And my youngest child, who is here with me today, Porter, he is 11. We have 4 of our own children and have fostered many other foster children over the years, although we no longer do foster care. Well, after people started asking me to speak, in 2009, the BBC over in England contacted me and asked if we would be on a documentary. Well, they called it a documentary. It was really a reality TV show, and it was called The World's Strictest Parents. It's all in the terminology, right? Whatever you feel good about. Anyway, so it was called The World's Strictest Parents. And I wasn't sure if I should be offended by that term, that's what they wanted me to be, was the world's strictest parents. I remember they called me and said to me, would you consider yourself a strict parent? And I said, well, no, I don't yell at my children or anything like that. Isn't that what strict means to maybe some of you here? They said, well, but do you let your kids go hang out at the pub? Do you let them get tattoos? Do you let them do drugs? And I said, no. And they said, then you're a strict parent. And I thought, wow, that's a really low bar. Isn't that a low bar? I thought that was kind of amazing, actually. And so I realized most of the people I know, hopefully, are still considered strict parents by that standard. But I actually looked up the word strict. One of my favorite books is Webster's 1828 dictionary. And I looked up the word, and it said, a strict person is a person who governs themselves by a set of principles. And then I realized, I am the world's strictest parents, because principles are really important to me. And I feel like that if I cannot govern my home with truth, what kind of a product am I going to turn out? And what could their life possibly be like? And what trials and troubles could they possibly have? And so, what I want to share with you today is a little bit about what self-government is, and then about how we create a culture in order to have this happen for our children and for ourselves, because self-government is not just something that's for kids, just so you know. It's for parents too. So I want to share with you my definition of self-government. By the way, if you want to see that BBC show, I should write down my website for you. It's at Teaching Self-Government all spelled out, .com. And if you go there and click the videos tab, then you could see that program. It became the most watched episode ever on the BBC because the youth came to our home very defiant. For 2 days, they ran away, had tantrums, and then finally, on the end of the second day, they decided to be calm, to follow instructions, to be loving. They had a complete heart shift. And this calmness was the thing, the BBC said, that was just amazing to the world. So our episode of this program was sold from England to America and to Australia, everywhere that they showed versions of this program called The World's Strictest Parents. So it was kind of a phenomenon. So what I taught these youth was self-government. And self-government is about having a change of heart. Now, that seems like the goal, doesn't it? For a disobedient child or somebody who's having a struggle in their life, for them to have a significant change of heart. It takes two things. The definition of self-government is being able to determine the cause and effect of any given situation and possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control them. So that's two things. Number one, you have to understand cause and effect. Am I old-fashioned or what? I like whiteboards. Okay, number two is you're possessing a knowledge of your own behaviors so that you can control yourself. That means you know yourself. Super important. So what the person is doing is they're saying, this is what I want. Is what I'm doing going to get me what I want? If not, if I'm not getting what I want, what do I need to change? Essentially, that's what you teach children. And that's what we have to teach ourselves to understand self-government. And truly, this is freedom. We live in a time in our world where people, I'm just going to say preach on the internet and everywhere else. People preach this idea that if you have an emotion, something that you feel inside, that you absolutely must let it out, that you have to throw it up on somebody else. If we follow that philosophy, we become a people who are in bondage. Not once do I hear those people who talk about how important it is to let all of our emotions out talk about what's fair to the person who gets emotionally thrown up on all of the time. They don't talk about that person. They also don't talk about how helpless a person feels when they know that as soon as they feel emotion, they have to give into it. Isn't that the sign of bondage for you? When you have a feeling that's bad and you can't get rid of it, you don't know how to move on past it, that's bondage. Freedom starts by learning self-government. And self-government has to be taught in the home. Because the front part of the brain that does all of your logical problem-solving processing is not fully developed until a child is somewhere between the ages of 18 and 24 years old. So who's going to teach them that? Who's going to help them learn cause and effect and continue to analyze themselves so that they'll have a free life? It's the parents who have to do that. And there's two components that you need in your environment at home to be able to teach this. Number one is you need the appropriate tone or feeling in your home. It needs to be a safe place to make mistakes. It needs to be a place free of power struggles, anger, and manipulation. And we're going to talk about this today. The second thing is you need to have a certain kind of structure. So all childhood specialists, they always say, children love structure. They need structure. Well, guess what? All people love structure, actually, to some degree. I mean, I'm one of those people who's a little bit more laid back by nature, and I can fly by the seat of my pants, but I still love structure, right? So everyone wants to know what their boundaries and parameters are. So these are two important things. In the BBC program, we taught them 4 basic skills, which I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about as we go on with the presentation today. And I have children's books that actually teach these skills, following instructions, accepting no answers, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. The one that they needed the most was how to accept a no answer. Both of those youth on the BBC show were both ages 17. And they didn't know how to be okay when life didn't go their way. Do you know people like that? There are adults that are like that. And they live very depressing, down lives. Do you meet people where they only can tell you the bad things that have happened in their life? That's called having a tantrum adult style. That's what it is. And they can't let go of it, and they can't let go of it. It's true. So that's what they needed to know. They needed to know that a parent, so I was supposed to be their parent, could say, no, you can't wear that. That's not appropriate to the standards of our home. No, you cannot smoke that. That's not appropriate to the standards of our home. And they had to be able to say, okay, and be okay. Every family has different standards, but those are just some of ours. We have many, actually, standards in our home where we tell our children what types of boundaries they need to have with language, dress, media, foods and beverages, and drugs and friends and all those kinds of things. And hopefully we get a little bit of time today to talk some more about that. I want to share with you one picture, and this picture, to me, gives me hope and understanding of self-government. And so it's one of my favorite pictures to share. I call it the teaching self-government ripples, okay? So the idea of self-government is a very old idea, very old. In fact, if any of you are Bible readers, then you will know in the book of Exodus, I think it is, there's a time where Moses tells the people in the Bible that they're going to divide themselves into groups of 10s, groups of 50s, groups of hundreds. Possibly some of you have read that in your Bibles before. Anyway, they came up with this idea of these layers of help for problems that they would have. Well, the Anglo-Saxons, when they were founding Anglo-land, which is called England today, they were looking at what kind of government that they should have, what structure. And they went to their Bibles and they decided to adopt this same structure of government, which is the Israelite structure, dividing into groups. And so you have, different family groups, and then they have their, larger community groups, their ward groups, and it goes out further and further. The founders of the United States, when they wanted to make what they considered a free nation, we can question whether we're fully there right now, but anyway, when they wanted to make that, they went to the Anglo-Saxons, which was very natural because they were English. And so they saw their model and thought, this is good. We need to go back to this structure. And this is how the structure works. Let's say that a person has a problem. It could be any problem whatsoever. The person could have a problem with their child or their spouse or their neighbor. They could lose a job or something like that. In fact, let's say lose a job, because that one is going to happen to most people at one point or another in their lives. Let's say a person loses a job. To fix their problem, their first line of defense is themselves. So I'm drawing a circle here and writing self in the middle of it. That is their very first line of defense. They go to themselves and then they say, what talents do I have that I could maybe use to make money with? What could I liquidate? What do I need to change about myself so that I can get a job or something like that? If they cannot find the answer by going to themselves, which hopefully has been cultivated that they know how to problem solve, then they go to their next line of defense. Their next line of defense is the family. In fact, it's the family that taught the self how to do the problem solving in the first place. If the family is not there and the family is not engaged, the self will be left abandoned and not know how to problem solve, which is a problem that we're seeing in our society today. So they go to the family and they say, I have lost my job. I need help. Can you help me in some way? And they say, well, we can give you a loan. Or they say, hey, we can network and we can point you in this direction. We can introduce you to so-and-so. The person might say, what's wrong with me? Do I need a new haircut? Why aren't people wanting to hire me? And the family would help. If for some reason the family cannot help, the next line of defense is friends. Or community. You could possibly go to civil society at this point as well. But typically, it would be the friends, trusted people. This person would then ask the friends, can you help me in some way? Can you introduce me to someone? Can you give me a loan? Or something like that in order to accomplish what I need to get this new job. If the friends cannot help me, the next line of defense, according to the founders of the United States and England, was to go to church. So then you would go to your pastor or your priest or your bishop or whoever your ecclesiastical leader was, and you would say, I need help. Maybe I need charity, or I need you to network for me. Can you help me find someone? Can you give me direction or counsel in some way? If the church is not able to help, which was hardly ever, if the church was not able to help, then you would go to the government. Now, I don't know how things are in all of the countries that are represented here, but if you're from the United States, you might think to yourself, if someone loses a job nowadays, who do they go to first? The government. Do you see, we're actually not a real self-governing people as a whole anymore. That's a problem. Why do people go to the government? It's an interesting concept. One of the reasons, I believe, is because by and large we are becoming more and more godless as a society. This isn't just here, but this is even around the world. People are eliminating that line of defense when they choose not to have faith. And that's okay. People can choose that. I'm just saying it does have its effects on the person. They don't have as much help or assistance. Friends, we are an image-based society. I know it because I have a Facebook account. All right? We are worried about what we look like to other people. I see it all the time. The selfie generation. We are not going to tell people, our friends, and whether even some of the young people fully have friends today is up for debate, just because the Facebook friend is not really the same, right? Anyway, we're not going to tell our friends when we have a problem. And so there's some pride there. And in our families, people are not turning to their families like they used to, especially in Western society. And Western society is influencing the entire world. And some people are going, Western society is influencing the entire world. And I can hear that. On Sunday, my family leaves to go to Kenya. We will be there for 3 weeks because the Catholic Diocese has asked us to come and teach people in their country, all around the country, how to teach the things that I teach because of the impact Western society has had on their families. That's what they told me. They need help conquering it. Their parenting is not prepared. So, the family. The family has embraced dysfunction. Dysfunction means that you're not living according to your purpose or your role. The word function means living according to your purpose. And so dysfunction is the new function. We see it all over media. It is embraced as the new way. That's why a Congress like this is so powerful, because people are actually saying, you know what, actually a functioning family is a really good idea. It's healthy for people, if at all possible. This would be a good plan, because it would give people, hopefully, someone to turn to. The only problem that I found is that there are a lot of people who are wanting to be functioning families, but actually lack the skills. They lack the structure. They know they want something different, but they don't know how to do it. So I want to talk to you about, just very briefly, what the options of parenting are. Because this family is confused. The one that doesn't know how to be functional. They haven't seen a model of it yet. Why are they confused? That's what I'd like to talk to you about. And I should probably mention at this point too, because I didn't mention this in my bio or my introduction, but I am the president of the Worldwide Organization for Women, and we're partners of this Congress, which is why I'm speaking to you today. And we are absolutely dedicated to trying to help these families do a fantastic job. Women to understand the power they have in this family. And that's why I'm here with you today, actually. So anyway, after I did the BBC show, we're talking, what I want to do right now is talk about what's happened to parenting, what's happened to the family, and then we want to go into what the solutions are, okay? So what's happened to parenting? This was brought to light in such a perfect way to me. After I did the BBC show, there was an author. His name was, well, I don't know if he's an author or just a columnist or something. His name was Mark Wanstall, and he works for Leeds Metropolitan University over in the United Kingdom. And he wrote an article called, "What Can We Learn from the World's Strictest Parents?" So I thought, well, I want to know what he learns from me. So I read his column to see what it said. And he said that we learn a few simple things. First, we learn that all of the youth that the Britons found to bring to these families in other places around the world, they all came from families who had what he called the emptying out of the adult identity. I loved that term. This was something I had seen but had never had a term for. The emptying out of the adult identity. So he said basically that the parents of these youth don't know what it means to be a parent. They don't understand the role of being a parent. And he even went so far as to say that there used to be a time when he was a little boy, so not long ago, that if you were in England and you were in some town square and some person came in with a tour group and you were, being kind of a hooligan or playing in the fountain with your friends or doing things that you shouldn't be doing, that leader of that tour group would say to his tour, "Just one moment, please." And then he would walk over to you and he would say, "This is inappropriate behavior. You need to get out of here and go home." And he said, as a boy, there is no way ever that we would have told that man, "No way, we're not, in your face." He said, no, we would have said, "Okay," and gone home. He said, but we don't have that today. These adults that have the emptying out of adult identity are afraid to be adults in the public sphere as well as with their own children. He says instead now, when we have hooligan behavior in the streets and on the subways, we now have what he called studied avoidance. I love that term. Have you seen that? The kind of like, well, I'm going to pretend I don't see it. And I had to ask myself, why do we have studied avoidance? We have studied avoidance because adults are afraid of young people. And because adults are afraid that if they choose to be an adult, that somehow there's going to be some legal repercussions or something like that. And they're worried for themselves and for their own safety. So they allow the safety of the child to be in danger. Does that make any sense? It doesn't to me. But this is what's happening. So he said, this is what is very easily noticed in all of the world's strictest parents programs. And it's a super simple plot. They get some of these children who were raised in this way with parents who don't know what it means to be a parent and don't have a role. And then they bring them to a family who does know what it means to be a parent. And then the child is going to experience some sort of aha, some sort of change that's going to make life different for them for the years to come. He said that there were 3 things that every family in the world's strictest parents had, whether you agreed with their methods or not, they all had these three things, and this was spread across the world. Number one, they had a strong family culture. So I was introduced to this idea of a family culture years ago, and it really amazed me. This thought that in my home was a whole separate culture, and that I could make a plan for this culture, and that it could make a big change in the lives of my children. So number one is strong family culture. Oops. Number two was that every one of these families had a strong social culture that supported what the family culture was doing. So that might be within their religious sect, possibly. It might be a group of friends or people like that who, even maybe if they weren't doing the exact thing as that family, they were fully in support of what that family would do. And that was huge. In fact, I remember one of the episodes of The World's Strictest Parents. It was in India. One of the boys got in trouble at school. The principal of the school called in the father and said, "How are you going to handle this?" And the father said, "Well, this is what we do for this behavior." And the school said, "This is what's happening then." And they just followed through. And I don't know if any of you that are from the United States or other places have experienced that kind of support from your schools, but that doesn't always happen. In fact, oftentimes parents are made out to be the enemy. Okay, number three is that all of the family had strong beliefs. Strong beliefs. Everyone... Did I spell that wrong? Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I had strong beliefs. It's funny on the whiteboard. It all looks different. So this is a big thing going back to the church. If all of a sudden you don't have that, what could happen to your family? So I want to talk about culture here for a minute. Culture is a fantastic word to study. Again, like I said, one of my favorite books is Webster's 1828 Dictionary. And if you look up the word culture in Webster's 1828 dictionary, it says the act of tilling and preparing the earth for crops, cultivation. It says the application of labor of her means to improve good qualities in, or growth, as in culture of the mind, or culture of great virtue. Any labor or means employed for improvement, correction, and growth. So that is what culture is. Culture is an environment that sets up a standard that points you toward strong minds, strong virtues, that corrects you when you go off course, that adds to your own personal growth. Growth meaning that you would become more than you are, right? That is what culture actually means. And it comes from the word culture, which is also the root of the word cultivate. And you heard that in there. To cultivate means, of course, to till or to plant and dress and sow, like as in a garden. But it also means to improve by labor or study, to advance the growth of, to refine and improve by correction of faults, and enlargement of powers. You know how we live, like the media world has this message that it's all about you and being the real you and nobody can tell you anything to do. And it makes it seem like there's this powerful influence, right? That everyone's supposed to stand up and claim their power. And it's all a fallacy. It's a lie. That's not where power comes from. Power comes from skill. Selfishness is merely a habit. Power comes from training yourself. And that is a key piece of culture. So the idea of what culture really is actually goes back to self-government. So right now we live in a time of counterculture then, don't we? I don't want to be a doomsdayer, but it's true. We've kind of shifted away from culture, haven't we? If that's what culture really is. Counter means the opposite direction or in conflict to. So right now, most of society, especially those living according to what they see on the media, are living in opposition to culture. They're leaving these things and following instead the mainstream of society. And it is affecting the consciences of the children. It's huge. It's affecting the consciences of the children. Let me tell you about the new culture. And I'm just going to give you one example. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of disturbing to me too. So one day, I'm not from Salt Lake City area. I live a bit more out in the country part of Utah. But I happened to be in this Salt Lake City area a little while back, and I was parked in front of a friend's house because I was going to go in to see this friend. Anyway, as I'm parked there in front of the house, something caught my attention. There was this sort of 4x4, like an ATV sort of a thing, little car thing, I don't know what they're called. Anyway, driving around. And the guy in it was looking in everybody's garbage bins. So it was garbage day. So he's checking the trash, and then he marks down. Then drives to the next bin, looks in, and marks down. And all of a sudden I saw on the back of his 4x4 thing, as he passed by, it said Salt Lake City Sanitation, whatever. And I thought, this is crazy. We are paying someone to look in people's trash bins to see what they've got in there? Wow. I mean, I know like recycle and all that. That's a good thing. I mean, we do it at our house. We've got our recycle bins and all that. But I just couldn't believe that this was something that was that important. Well, so then my friend saw me, comes out of his house, and comes over to talk to me. And I happened to say to him, I noticed that there's this person driving around the neighborhood, and he's looking in the bins. And my friend had just moved to this neighborhood, so this was probably a new practice for him as well. Anyway, so I said, do they always do this? Do they always look in your garbage cans? And all of a sudden he turns. He didn't even answer me. He just turns and he looks at his garbage can. And there was a note on his garbage can, and it was stapled on the garbage can. Without saying a word to me, he goes over to the garbage can, rips off the piece of paper, and starts looking at it. And he's like, oh no, I put my grass clippings in with my recycle stuff. I thought they'd be, recyclable. I gotta fix that. He's lamenting. He walks into the house without even saying goodbye to me. He felt shame. He was publicly, by the whatever department, made to feel like he had done something that was morally wrong. So much so that he couldn't even talk to me after it happened, and that was it. And I drove away, and I thought, this is crazy. Why would we tell people and micromanage everything that they can put in a trash bin? But on the flip side, we wouldn't tell our children who they can sleep with and when. And there's no rule about sleeping around. There's no rule about, all inappropriate sexual conduct. Because that would be like, taboo. We don't tell people those things. But instead, so you see, as a society, we still want rights and wrongs. But what we're doing is we're focusing all of our effort on things that do not matter at all and leaving all of this vitally important stuff that plans and trains the consciences of our children that need our help in order to be happy people who know what are right and wrong, good and bad, true and false. We're just leaving it because we don't dare make a stance. Isn't that crazy? I feel like it's crazy. I feel like I'm glad my garbage doesn't get looked at and I live somewhere else too, but I feel like it's crazy. So let's talk about the history of parenting really quickly. And this is a class I could talk for 2 hours just on this one topic, so I'm going to be as quick as I can. I never have as much time as I would like. So there are 3 types of parenting. When Mark Wanstall wrote his article, he said, that these parents who had the emptying out of the adult identity were what he called modern progressive parents. Now, I'm not going to go political on you, and we're not going to talk about different parties in government and stuff like that, because I know some people align more with that term. However, what he is saying is, and I was so happy he gave me this term, because for years I'd seen this type of parent who was really well-meaning. They loved their child so much, but for some reason their child turned out to be the worst child, even compared to the ones that were really angry, ornery parents. And I would just look at this and think, there is this type of parent, I don't know how to classify it or how to talk about it. So I was so grateful for those words. So he says there's 3 types of parents. I'm going to talk about them quickly. The first is the modern progressive parent. That is the type of parent that feels like they need to improve upon the past, improve upon history. They want to leave it behind. They're the type of parent that probably was influenced by a man who I believe is internationally published, because when I went to teach in China on a book cart in the streets of China, there was a book by him, still to this day, and his name was Dr. Benjamin Spock. Dr. Benjamin Spock is called the father of the hippie generation. He taught parents that the goal was to be your child's friend, not to be their parent. Now, maybe some of you in here are thinking, well, wait, I do want to be my child's friend. It is possible. It is possible. One of the other forms of parenting, you actually get lasting friendship. When you are a modern progressive parent and your goal is friendship, and you treat your child like a friend instead of like a child, then your child does not become your friend really. And your child is lost, and they don't get taught what's right and wrong, good and bad, true and false. It is very child-led. The parents become facilitators. They manage, they give money, they give opportunity. Oh, we're going to sign you up for every class there is in the community. We'll let you go to all of that stuff. But they're never going to have time actually as a family with their parents because they're going to be so busy. It is entitlement-based, okay? So the child is taught, I deserve stuff. I deserve to be treated this way. I deserve cell phones. I deserve things. Everybody else has them. That's what I get. And the parent has to give in to that. They are completely free from correction. They have complete license. This is a very permissive form of parenting. The result of this is the child feels very lonely, very confused. There was one time where I was talking about this in a woman. It was down in Las Vegas, Nevada, and she said to me, she raised her hand and just with tears in her eyes, and she said, I was raised by that type of parent. And I did everything bad that I could think of just to see if they would notice, just to see if my mom would correct me. And she didn't care. And I have ruined my life, and I'm still trying to fix it. I thought that was very interesting, a great testimonial for what happens. Because, see, this type of parent feels like every child gets to decide what's right and wrong, good and bad, true and false, all on their own. They don't want to tell them. They get to decide what religion they want to be. They get to decide what they think is morally right and wrong. They get to pick all of these things. What kind of a leader does that? What kind of a leader figures all this stuff out and then withholds it from the people he's leading so that they can't stand on his work to move on? That's not good leadership. It's abandonment. The next form of parenting is the bully, fear-based parenting. Now, this one is one that gets a lot of press, right? These parents make the news when they do things that are awful to their children. And we've seen all these people. We hear the stories from back in the day, you know, the mother who would throw her shoe at her child, and the father who would take off his belt, and, you know, all of these kinds of things, who would raise a heavy hand to the child in order to get the child to do what they wanted him to do. This type of parenting is kind of survival of the fittest. sort of animalistic, really, actually. In fact, the children often learn to be dishonest because they try to work the system. They can't wait until they're finally the stronger one who can stand up against the parents and be gone. They believe in what is called positive legalism, which means, is it legal according to me? I'm the ruler, right? By the way, the modern progressives, they believe in just plain old legalism. If it's legal, it's right. If it's illegal, it's wrong. The sad thing is the laws change all the time, so there's really no ever, right or wrong. So positive legalism basically means if it bugs me, it's wrong. If I like it, it's right. So there's not really any morality there. It's just all about trying to appease that one leader, that one person. It's anger-based, and it's really focused in the child's mind on self-preservation. I just have to get through this. There's a lot of conformity, not a lot of choice that they feel like they get to make, and they end up trying to work the system. The third type of parenting, before we get to the third type of parenting, most parents nowadays, I have noticed, because I go from place to place, my whole family comes with me and we teach, and I oftentimes will go to people's homes and help them learn self-government. And what I've seen is that by and large, the majority of parents nowadays, at least who have been influenced by intelligentsia and popular thought of the day, want to be their child's friend, want things to feel happy and nice. So they go modern progressive. But when the child is out of control and they don't know what else to do, they go bully. And then they feel bad, and then they go back to permissive. They feel like, I've got to be bad just for that 1 minute, just to shock them out of it, and then we'll go back. The answer is not even anywhere on the spectrum between modern progressive and bully fear-based. It's on a completely different plane. Because both of these, bully fear-based and modern progressive, are reactive forms of parenting. They are waiting for a child to make a mistake, and then they will do something. A truly good parent is what we call traditional strict. Traditional strict parents live according to principle. And they are proactive, which means they teach their children ahead of time what the law is, what the rules are, what the consequences will be, what the results will be if they follow that plan. And then, when they see something happen, they only need to address it and bring the child back into remembrance. If you look up the word obedience in Webster's 1828 dictionary, it says in there, I love Noah Webster because he would write these little explanations. And he would say, in order for a person to be obedient, they must first know the law. And then something like, if they aren't, or if they just make a bad action or something, that's not disobedience unless they knew the law prior. Something like that, he phrased. So you actually have to know the law first. It's the most merciful and kind, loving type of parenting. It is parent-led and modeled. So the principles that the parent is expecting the child to learn, the parent is also working on those principles. It is not based upon the self. It is based upon the family unity. Everything has a bigger picture. Our world has so many messages about the self. Do this for yourself. That's what you need. What do you want? Where are you going? Instead of looking at that greater picture of that family and what could happen in that sphere. There is a definite right and wrong, good and bad, true and false, and it is determined by principle, by the core book. So that's super important as well. It is very historical and moral in order. There is a choice with knowledge of consequences and what they will be. So the child actually makes an educated choice. So how do you do this? How do you create an environment where you can be a traditional strict parent? And I hope you'll understand what we normally associate with strict is the bully fear-based, right? So strict in my mind is a completely different thing. Once I realized I was strict, it opened my eyes. I could be a whole different person. I have a book called A House United. I also have it in Spanish here today. It is translated into Japanese, almost published there in Chinese as well, but I only have those two with me. And what I'm going to be talking about now is information that comes out of this book. I have, if you would like, and we can just maybe, Danielle, will you grab these and send them around? If you would like a video follow-up from the class, because I won't be able to cover everything in the book, okay? You can sign up your email on there, and I will send you a free video so you can have more information on it. Okay, yeah. Whoops, as I lose everything. All right, in order to create an environment where self-government can be learned, you need to create a working family government. So this, because remember, it's all about family unity if you're a traditional strict parent. So this family government, if you'll remember, was based upon tone and structure. I'm going to talk about some elements of tone and structure right now, and I'm going to talk to you and show you, even by example, some of the things that you can do in your home to make a change. Now, I could spend so much time, so many hours on tone. When I do couples training retreats and things like that, I will literally spend 3 days teaching all of this stuff, plus tax, to people. So you'll forgive me if I brush over this very quickly. Let's make a list of our tone elements and our structure elements. Tone is how it feels. So, a lot of people, when they think of what they want to do for their children and what it feels like, actually, we'll just go like this. They think of the word love. When I did foster care for troubled youth, I had a hard time always feeling love toward them. Number one, they weren't mine. Number two, they did behaviors I didn't even know people were capable of doing. I didn't even know that they existed. And this was a big change for me, to see these things and try to determine how am I going to help them problem solve that and be free from that. I remember feeling out of love with my foster children sometimes. And I recognized that if I was not in love with them, I could not influence their heart. I could not touch them inside. So I made a new practice for myself. This was a teaching self-government moment for me. I decided, since they were going to come home from school every day at 4 o'clock, that every day at 3:45, I would go to my room and I would pray. I would ask God to give me love for them. Because if I couldn't have love in my heart when I looked at them, they would not be able to have a full change of heart. And you see this moment in the BBC show, if you get a chance to watch it. There's this moment where James, the 17-year-old, is very out of control. And all of a sudden, I realized he needs to connect with me. He needs to know that I love him and that I trust that he is able to do this. And so I said, James, give me a hug. And I gave this boy a hug, and he wept. And I gave him an understanding, a vision of what it was that he was capable of doing, and showed him that I trusted he was capable. So love is number one. If you fall out of love with your own child, which can happen, because anyone can get selfish and get bugged, okay? Then you have to find a way to get it back. Do you sing? What do you do? When you're not feeling like you love them. Oop. Trust is another tone element that is so very important. I don't believe that any person was born bad. Never ever have I looked at a baby and thought, what a wicked child. It's just never happened. They're so cute. They're so free from doing anything wrong. And so is my mother-in-law. And so is my neighbor who has that dog who, I don't like. Everyone, for the most part, there's very few people who have sworn allegiance to evil. Most people are trying to be good and doing good. And I have to give them that. Otherwise, I'm going to correct them for selfish reasons instead of for what is best for them. This is huge. I want us to do an exercise really quick because I want you to see the goodness. I want you to feel the love and trust that are in the other people around you in the room today. So this is a little probably not World Congress-ish, but that's okay. Okay? I want you to find a partner even if you don't know them. And like I said, I know this is awkward, but people in the United Kingdom can do this, so you can too. Okay, because they looked at me like, what? But they did it, and they liked it. I want you to find a person. We're going to look in each other's eyes. No talking. 30 seconds. Okay? On your mark. And I want you to just look. See what you see. Get set. Go. And stop. So every time I do that, what happens is, and I hope you can all see me from the back of the room, every time that happens, people go, and they smile really big, and then they kind of like pull back and like try not to smile, and then why does that happen? It can't be because we're all just insecure. It's got to be something else. And my thought is that it's because you see something good. There's something good. Could you see inside that person? There's an old saying that's the windows are the eyes to the soul. I mean, the eyes are the windows to the soul. I might be talking too much. Okay, anyway, the eyes are the windows to the soul, and it is true. The first step of every single one of the 4 skills that I teach to children, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, the first step is always look at the person. If a parent merely thinks to themselves, every time I'm going to talk to my child, I'm going to look into their eyes, the change that will transform within their own hearts and in the hearts of their entire family is huge. Just that one thing. Because when you look in a person's heart, through their eyes, you feel love for them. You feel appreciation for them. You trust them. You accept them. That's another one, acceptance. You accept them for who they are. And you're not going to overload them with unnecessary criticism about what they look like, their body structure, or, you're not going to take it personally when someone dumps a whole bucket of rice on the floor. I know it's frustrating. That's a bad one to clean up, but we don't have to take it personally. Or when one of our children comes to us and says, Mom, I got a problem with porn. Are we going to rejoice with them that they were able to talk about it and help them find a plan, a solution for how to fix the problem? Or are we going to take it personal and be disgusted by our own family member? It is an epidemic, pornography is. It ruins relationships, distances families, and creates lifetimes of pain. And many of you, if not all of you, will know someone who struggles with that. What are you going to do? Another key part of our tone is mercy. We must forgive our children when things don't go right. That doesn't mean we don't correct it. We definitely correct it. But again, we don't take it personally. In fact, do you know what one of the most merciful things you can do for a person, especially your child? One of the most merciful things, when you are their greatest advocate, it is when you correct them when they've done something wrong. Most people don't think of it that way. They think correcting is bad. When your child is doing something wrong, they are not happy and they're not free. So as a true advocate, someone who shows mercy to the child, you correct them to bring them back to happiness. It's a wonderful thing to understand the role of parent, and that role is to correct. Your children should feel closer to you during and after a correction than they did before you corrected them. And one of the main things that's going to make a difference is looking in their eyes and thinking, I love you, the moment that you're correcting them. Can you feel that? Because I'm looking at you. Okay, finally, on tone. Actually, we could go on and on, but this one is probably the most important. Calmness. There's a whole class I give, actually, called The Power of Calm. It is indeed a power. A person who has calmness is prepared in an instant to meet any crisis. They have absolute confidence. They are prepared at all times, no matter what happens. They are self-centered, meaning they are constantly assessing themselves and keeping themselves calm. Did you know that for parenting, this is the number one hardest thing for all parents? Number one, hardest, calmness. The sweetest, kindest little mothers who are so soft-spoken will come up to me and say, please help me. I know you won't believe me, but I am a yelling, raving monster. And I need help. And what they need is this. I had a woman say to me at a conference this year, she said, I just had to come and tell you I've been working on calmness for 2 years, and I'm finally calm. I was like, yes, do you know what that's called? Self-government. That's what it's called. She was assessing when she wasn't calm and determining what she needed to do to get calm, not thinking she had to handle something exactly the moment it happened. Instead, preparing what she was going to say, what skills she was going to teach her children, and what skills she was going to use herself. And that gave her the power to conquer her. The most amazing people in this world, people like Benjamin Franklin, like Gandhi, they are people who conquered themselves. And when they self-governed and they figured out how to fix their own flaws and weaknesses, they became sages of wisdom for the world. Don't you want your children to be that? I know I do. So let's move on to structure. I could talk at length about things that we can do. One key thing that we can do that fits into the tone and structure category is we can have regular family activities with our families. Every week, pick a day. Pick a time where your family has a family activity. Everyone is invited to attend. When I went to speak in China, and they were saying, how do I help my child get good grades? Because this was a big deal for the parents in China, for their children to get good grades. And I was on the radio, and they're interviewing me as this parenting expert. I felt like what I just had to say was, have a family activity. Develop a relationship with the child, because this is what it looks like when you teach a child. So when you teach a child, I'm going to draw, it should say a C, core values. I'm going to draw another picture for you really quickly. This is a picture of a wagon wheel. Whenever I think about teaching children, I think of this picture of a wagon wheel, okay? It's really ugly, but there you go. The middle of it is our core values. Those are all of the reasons why we would do any teaching for our children. All of these spokes that come out are the things that we teach our children. We might teach them math, manners, we might teach them appropriate hygiene, problem solving, adult skills, whatever things we feel like are important for our children. But we must have this rim, this band that goes around the outside, in order to truly train the child. And this rim represents the relationship. Without the relationship, or if the relationship gets a problem, that teaching is ruined. So what I explained to the people in China was, if you really want your children to do well in their studies, to follow what you say, you need to know who they are. You need to have a time where everything is about that relationship. So pick once a week. Other structural elements that are important is the economy that you have in your family. I could talk at length about this, but I truly can't. I don't have time because I want to get to the skills. Is that all? They told me I had till 5:15. Doesn't the book say 5:15? It says 5:15. I am scheduled to go till then. I promise I'll end right at 5:15. I have enough material. Okay, 5:10. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just am doing what I'm told. Okay, so family economy. I'm not going to write on the board. That will take more time. Family economy. This is a system of positives, negatives, okay? Positive consequences, negative consequences, natural consequences, artificial consequences. Some people use things like timeout as a consequence. I actually use timeout as a place to find calmness, as a trigger spot for the child to be calm. Then I do the teaching and they accept a consequence after they have become calm. So they don't have to sit there for certain periods of time, things like that. In our family, we use one main thing. Really four, but one that we use most of the time, and that is work. Because Samuel Smiles, who was an author from the 1800s, says work is the antidote for a sick character. I believe him. I believe that one of the reasons we have so much entitlement in our society is because we are such a privileged people around the world nowadays. We don't get our hands quite dirty enough. We don't do enough work. Work builds confidence. When the BBC came to my home, that James, we taught him to clean a bathroom. He was 17. He'd never cleaned a bathroom. He earned it as an extra chore because he didn't follow instructions. So he cleaned this bathroom. And he came to me. He's like, Nicholeen, come look at this. Look, I did that. I cleaned this bathroom. He was so excited that he had cleaned a bathroom. He had to come and tell me. And he said, I didn't know I could do that. He's like, I'm going to go home and do that at my house, and my mom is going to die. He was so excited to clean a bathroom. We should offer our children always those opportunities to work and to learn those things. So we use work. We have three other things that we use for when a child is completely out of control. It looks like now we may not get to that, but we do major maintenances, which are a little larger things, and then we do problem-solving exercises, and then loss of privileges. Loss of privileges for 24 hours. When they lose their privileges for 24 hours, they don't have phones or computers or friends or time to just sit around and read or play the piano or whatever. They sleep the recommended hours. They go to school the recommended hours. They eat 3 meals a day, and then they do work and problem-solving exercises the rest of the time. Porter, when was the last time you picked that? He's never picked it. He saw somebody else picked it. That was good enough. My children don't pick that because the options are, do I get calm and talk to mom, or do I go completely out of control and then get calm and talk to mom? And it's just like a no-brainer for them. That why wouldn't I just get calm and talk to mom? So let's talk quickly about how they get calm. Now I'm feeling really rushed for time. Porter, come on up here. I want him to help me teach you. There's 4 skills that we teach children, the 4 basic skills. I want him to help me show you those skills. He's 11 years old, and he does teach adults all the time how to do parenting. Then I want to teach you, and I'll just probably have to run over them so quickly, but I do have the book. There's some other ways you can find out information. The 5 teaching styles, the 5 ways that parents teach their children. Talk into that and see if it works. Okay, good. All right, great. So Porter and I are going to do the 4 basic skills. The first skill is following instructions. That's that little red book. Why don't you tell everybody what are the 5 steps to following an instruction?
Look at the person with a calm face, voice, and body. Say okay or ask to disagree appropriately. Do the task immediately and check back.
Okay, there you go. So you look at the person, like we already talked about how important that is, with a calm face, voice, and body. Say okay or ask to disagree appropriately. That's another skill they know. Do the task immediately and then check back. They check back so that you can praise them and so that they can see, I did it. I self-governed. We have to be in a state of constant analysis to really learn to self-govern ourselves. So we're going to practice, Porter, you be my daddy, okay, and I'll be your little girl. In our family, we practice role reversal all the time. It's a great eye-opening experience for the child, for them to pretend to be you and give you the instructions and teach you the skills so that when you are doing the real parenting, they know completely what you're thinking and doing, and they know there's no manipulation. Parenting should not be manipulation. Okay, give me an instruction. I'll do it right, completely right, okay?
Nicholeen, I need you to go sweep that floor over there.
Okay. Sweepy, sweepy, sweepy. Dad, I swept the floor. Is there anything else?
No, it looks really great. You looked at me with a calm face, voice, and body. You said okay. You went to do it, and now you're checking back. Good job. No.
All right. Okay, so you see, he told me exactly what I did do right. He did the first teaching style that parents should do, and that is praise. Parents should praise their children 6 to 10 times for every one time that they correct them. It is important for children to see positive consequence and to be able to analyze when things go right, not just when things go wrong. Okay, Porter, let's do accepting a no answer. What are the steps to accepting a no answer?
Look at the person with a calm face, voice, and body. Say, okay, drop the subject.
And drop the subject. That's the new one. So drop the subject. If I didn't drop the subject, it would be like this. Dad, can I have a cookie?
I'm going to give you no answer.
But Dad, I really want a cookie. That's me not dropping the subject, okay? Or if I said, okay, and then I was like, that's me not dropping the subject. Because I am still thinking about the cookie, okay? Over and over again. So let's do it the correct way. Please pre-teach me. That is the second teaching style. This is where the parent tells the child ahead of time, this is what I am going to do. This is what you could earn if it's right. This is what you could earn if it goes wrong. I'm going to ask him a question and accept the no answer. Dad, can I have $1 million?
Do you remember how to accept a no answer?
Yeah.
What are the steps?
You look at the person, you keep a calm face, voice, and body, you say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, and then you drop the subject.
Okay, I'm going to give you a no answer. No, you can't have $1 million.
Okay. So that's how you do it. Do you see how he told me right ahead of time what he was going to have me do? It seems funny to tell someone, I'm going to give you a no answer. No. But you know what that does? It preps them. Their brain gets ready. They think, look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, or say okay, or ask to disagree appropriately, drop the subject. Okay. Okay. And then they're ready. Okay? It's very interesting. Okay, accepting consequences. A person must be given the opportunity to accept consequences. Otherwise, they cannot learn self-government. Otherwise, everything will always be your fault or somebody else's fault. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question. I won't accept the consequence. You're going to need to correct me. Correcting is the third style. The third style for correcting, you describe what happened, describe what should happen, and then you tell them what they earned, and then you practice it the right way. Because of time, we're not going to practice it the right way, but you would do a role play such as we're doing right now. Okay, Dad, can I dye my hair blue?
I'm going to give you a no answer. No, you can't dye your hair blue. Okay, Nicholeen, just now I gave you a no answer and you went, so you've earned an extra chore.
Okay.
Good job.
Are you going to tell me what I should have done?
What you should have done was said okay with a calm face, voice, and body and drop the subject. And you did really good the second time of saying okay. So you and your extra chore will be going and vacuuming the hall.
Okay, so then I'm going to say, okay, to accept a consequence, I look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, then I go and do the task immediately, and then I check back and drop the subject. Dad, I did that. Is there anything else?
No, it looks very great. No, there's not anything else.
Okay, thanks, Dad. All right, so finally I'm going to share with you disagreeing appropriately. That's the fourth skill. I know that I'm close to the end of time here. The steps for disagreeing appropriately are to look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say that you understand the other person's point of view, and then to share your point of view, and then to listen to what they say and drop the subject. This is for parents and children, teachers and children, parents and parents, neighbors, anybody. This is a really great skill for life. Dad, may I dye my hair blue?
I'm going to give you no answer. No, you can't.
Okay, may I disagree appropriately?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I understand that you don't want me to dye my hair blue because it goes against our family standard to have blue hair, but I'm in this play called Midsummer Night's Dream, and I'm supposed to be a fairy, and the director says we're all supposed to have colored hair, and so I thought I would dye my hair blue because it matches my eyes and it would be really cool, and I could get the kind where it just washes out. If I had it washed out after the weekend, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I think that'd be okay, only if it was washed out before Sunday.
Okay, thanks, Dad. You're awesome. You can go sit down. Thanks. Now, the one thing we didn't get to was what to do when they don't care and they won't talk to you about it and all of that kind of stuff. But I promise you, you'll get more information on the video. If you sign the thing, please make sure it comes back to me. You'll get more information there, and there's books and things like that. There's also ways that you can check up with your family, having meetings and stuff like that. If I could just leave you with one final thought, and that is that our families are under attack. They truly are. You can point the finger wherever you want. You can point them at the schools, you can point them at the media, you can point them at the governments. We can point them all over the place. But truly, truly, no matter who it is, it seems to me very clearly that what they want are the hearts of the children, the consciences and the minds of the children. If we want to have the type of society where people are free and happy, we must find culture again. We must train the hearts of our children so that they will not be captive by people who want their hearts for a buck. God bless.